Today we speak with Reem Khatib. I have to improve my right. A researcher and curator based in Jerusalem and Bethlehem, and program coordinator and sound studio manager at Dar Jacir. Jacir. Okay, sorry. For art and research. She has taken part in Unbuilding Listenings with Nicolás Jaar, coordinates Palestine Beats workshop with Berklee College of Music, and curates rhythms for relief using sound and music for healing and collective resilience in the face of colonial oppression. And I would start with Dar Jacir, because it is not just an art center. It is a house, a garden, and an archive, and it has been raided and damaged by Israeli forces more than once. And so it's this thing of, like, in Palestine, a house is never like a private structure in a way. It always carries history with it, you know, it's like a proof of the occupation. And so just to start, like, what does it mean to work from a 19th century Palestinian family home that the occupation keeps trying to violate?
Dar Jacir, founded in 2014, is an experimental and interdisciplinary hub, which takes the approach of a participatory approach, and also it fosters intergenerational and cross-cultural exchanges and encounters. Originally, the house was built in 1880s for the Jacir family, and so it's 150 years old. It stood tall against the Ottoman Empire, the British Mandate, and of course now the ongoing Israeli occupation. It's a house that we're the guardians of it now.
Yeah.
We care for it as it cares for us. It's a space where many exchanges in art and research happen, and land is a very crucial part of our programming because of the green terraces around the house, and also the importance of having this green space open for the community with all the annexation and the not allowing Palestinians to enter their land.
Yeah.
It's the intimacy is the heart of the project. Yes, we are open to the community, but mainly the intimacy, the privacy of the house. Our main program is residency program, so we have artists in residence, researchers in residence who spend time in this house as their home to develop their projects. So we're kind of both the closed for privacy as a house and open for the community whenever we have the chance to give.
Yeah. And how have you been able, or what are you doing to, like, to keep these practices, to make gathering these practices to resist the logic, colonial logic of fragmentation? Like, how do you keep basically resisting the fragmentation that the occupation tries to force?
Well, I think I can focus here, or I can highlight the words intergenerational and interdisciplinary. This because of what this space offers. We have farmers, artists, scholars, grandmothers, grandchildren.
Because like I feel you are doing the opposite of the fragmentation, you know, like
Exactly. We
you
have
are
everyone
really,
all at once, share this space together, share the knowledge, and learn about each other, with each other, from each other,
yeah,
all together. And that's the core of the anti-fragmentation approach of the colonial system.
yeah. And also to explore, like, I feel that when, you know, people talk about occupation, occupation is very visual. You know, it's the destruction is, we can, you know, we talk about land and we talk about cultural buildings and, you know, the images that also come from Gaza. But there's also, and I think specifically in Palestine, like a very sound is also super powerful to talk about the occupation, you know. An example with the zanana, but also like the sounds of occupation. And when we talk about sound in Palestine, so like drones, checkpoints, prayers, voices, silence, like all of that. Um, how do you feel the occupation has been shaping the very way people listen and like the the sounds of the routine and the sounds of the cities, you know, and life in general?
Sonic warfare is definitely an extension of the colonial control and colonial power in Palestine. And use of sound as to control the soundscape of Palestine is very is real and is there. It exists. As you said, visually it's more known. I personally focus on my current research on the sound of checkpoints and how how the extension of colonization on checkpoints also deprives the Palestinian of the natural soundscape of their own land, first of all, and also the direct sound control and sound weaponization that happens at the checkpoint.
Can you give examples of the way it's affecting the natural?
Well, before example, I can mention the effect of sound on the human body. So sound is, or listening and sound is the first thing that begins with life and the last thing to end with it. And the effect of sound on the body and the nervous system, it comes in the body without permission, even before the brain gives it meaning, which means it has huge power on the reaction and response of human beings. So it plays on two factors, mainly the association of a memory of the past, in the past, and the something that might happen in the future. So when a Palestinian is at the checkpoint, any sound that is related to the checkpoint sound is either going to take them back to a memory of this sonic colonial violence, or is going to make them anticipate violence. In both ways, it takes them away from the present moment. For an example, many people have associated, we have this, at the checkpoint, there's this machine that's called ma'ata, we call it, which is an iron gate that goes, I don't know if you've been through it. And it's the patent of it was made for chicken, to organize chicken at farms. The sound of it is a very, like, it's very much associated with checkpoints for any Palestinian anywhere in the world. And one participant in an interview told me that when they went to Jordan once for a while, and they had a gym membership, and going into the gym, there was a ma'ata, and the first thing that they felt was they needed to check whether their ID is with them or not. So it's just this simple small things that we might not be aware of in our daily life, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just this simple, as I said, subtle sound that could be in everyone's daily life twice a day, coming in and out, you know, of a checkpoint.
And as an artist, how do you think we can work with like hold the tension of sounds or of certain situations, for example, without kind of like aestheting the suffering, you know, like how do you navigate in the projects that you are involved that dynamic of like it's always even in films and other types of art, you know, like how do you hold the tension of the situations and balance with it's not even I don't find balance the right word for it, but I think you get it, like how do you navigate?
First, the sound of colonial violence and the sound of the Palestinian daily life, they exist simultaneously, and you can't mention one without mentioning the other. I think the first thing that we should start doing, or we should do, is to. It's not about making peace with the sound of colonial violence. It's about refusing to let it have the last word. And as artists, researchers, or activists, or human beings even, we should listen. The key word is listen here. Yeah. Listening is a very intimate action. It lets you let your guard down and see the other person, see not like literally, but you know, see the other person in front of you as a human being and connect deeply with your heart, with your soul, with your mind fully, you know. And it's you get rid of all the prejudices, the stereotypes, the projections, and it's not just simply putting yourself in someone else's shoes as much as reminding yourself that we're all part of this life all together, you know, we're all part of this cycle. And that's a very human thing to do, and I feel like it's a very huge step to start with.
Yeah, you were saying that listening, it's very intimate, and you worked on Unbuilding Listenings, and it's a workshop built for Palestinians with little or no experience in music, teaching them to record, layer frequencies, and tell stories. And I think that the world tends to hear Palestine only through colonial lens, you know, where we have been talking about security, conflict, tragedy, and all of that. And what do you think that the world needs to unlearn in the way it listens to Palestine?
I'd love to talk about the project of the Unbuilding Listening workshop and the start of it with the sound studio at Dar Jacir. So the sound studio is also part of the house, and it's a small building next to the house that is originally a food shack or a food storage. And in 2019, Nicolás Jaar came for a residency at Dar Jacir, and his final project for the community was to turn this food storage into a sound studio. And because of the thick stone, you know, that it's natural isolation, sound isolation.
That's really cool.
And the whole coziness in the building itself gives a very nice vibe for anyone to work, either individually or collectively there. Myself, I experienced it in so many beautiful different ways. In 2022, I participated in an Unbuilding Listenings workshop. And if I can summarize my experience, it was my first experience with sound directly. And I remember the whole goal was Nicolás teaching us how to, as you said, unlearn and deconstruct, decolonize the sounds that we grew up with in the environment, in the soundscape, and then build. So we unbuild and then we build the sounds.
What are the sounds that you have to unbuild, for example?
Well, it was very colorful what we did as like each one of the participants. Everyone learned so many things about themselves. We were recording sounds of our environments, and it was very similar yet very different, you know, experiences. Most of the participants had the sense of love in their sounds, the one they rebuilt or they built after the unbuilding of the sonic environment around them. And the sonic environment that we were trying to unbuild was very, you know, loud and very layered and so many things. And then most of us ended up with very love-filled sounds eventually. And it was the first, for me, the first time that I experienced how to deconstruct the sound and decolonize the sound. And this is my whole journey with how I ended up with Sounds of Checkpoints.
Yeah. And do you feel the difference even in the bodies, you know, because you were saying like how the bodies react to sound, and it was amazing what you shared, that I never thought about that, you know, that it's the first kind of like channel of information we have, and also the last experience. And like what happens to a body, especially a young body, when every time it finds, you know, rhythm or voice, or you know, the way it experiences sound, it's in a context of permanent fear. Like what even with the participants, like what is the change that happens, you know, even to themselves and to the bodies, you know, that transformation.
I can't but think of a very beautiful example for this, which is also a participant of the interviews that I conducted for the research on the perception of sound. It was a 28-year-old male who crossed the checkpoint very few times a year, maybe years. They needed a permit, and you know, because they live in the West Bank. And in the interview, they mentioned that at a certain year, in a certain year, there was this 10-second looping sound piece at checkpoint 300, and this is actually very common. Where Israelis use looping sounds or like background music, like they would flip a song. It's very disturbing to think about. It could start as a funny thing, but then it would be very disturbing knowing that you're gonna be held for a while in this, you know.
Yeah, it's also a form of torture.
Exactly.
Like even like in a side note, but in Portugal, one of the tortures for political prisoners was actually just having like a water dropping. Yeah. So it's something so.
It's there are so many uses of sound that are top-notch horrible,
Yeah.
in torture and violence. And it's the looping sounds, the music also, as I mentioned, because as Palestinians we tend to normalize for survival, so we become like it becomes like a background sound. We're not aware of it, and they mentioned that every time they were stuck at the checkpoint or spending some time to cross, they would like hear this song looping, and it was a popular pop song that they chose for the 10-second piece. And what happened is he described the feeling in his chest and throat while he was talking to me. He put his hand and he said, "I felt it here. I felt it stepping on my chest and, taking my breath away." And then continued to say that because it was a popular song at that time, whenever they'd hear it anywhere else other than the checkpoint, like an example, they mentioned their grandmother's house, they would anticipate a soldier popping out from anywhere in the room to, armed. And so, this is an example of another like sound that could seem harmless in a way. But then what's beautiful about this, I know I described it as a beautiful example, not for the chest, no, because they said that one time they crossed and they bumped into a group of teenagers that were going on a trip with their school or with an organization, and they were all stuck together at the checkpoint, of course, waiting for their turn. And the teenagers were beatboxing on the sound piece, and they were making rap, and they were coming up with like lyrics and stuff, and dancing and clapping, and some were dabka dancing on the like they made it a whole fun experience, and they kind of deconstructed this association that he had with this experience at the checkpoint. And now every time he would listen to this song or hear it, he would remember these teenagers, beatboxing on top over this looping grid.
And does that happen with the participants as well? Like sounds that were before triggering, after, like and doing, I don't know, and rebuilding like again and creating new. That's happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In different alongside other like ways of music healing together collectively. But this is one way of doing it.
Yeah. And you have been working between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, two cities that historically were bound together, but now are separated by checkpoints and the wall and permits and restrictions of movement and all of that. What does it mean, and how do you move and curate and produce when even the movement between those two cities is super controlled and limiting?
For me personally, I've been living through like coming back and forth from cities since I was a child, crossing checkpoints at least once a day for 12 years to go to school, and then studying at a different city also to cross weekly or bi-weekly. And now my work and where I'm based in Jerusalem and my work in Bethlehem. Of course, after October 2023, it's becoming tighter and tighter in a crazy, rapid way. And since I also started working in October 2023 at Dar Jacir, to me, it always felt like any event of any sort that happens, and successfully or not, it just happens. And Dar Jacir, it's like a tiny miracle, let's
Yeah.
say, with everything that's happening.
And it is.
Because it's exhausting to have to plan around uncertainty as the norm, and it's something that Palestinians have to, adapt every second of the day to. And if we don't adapt, then we fall into the whole very hopeless, dark place where I don't think anyone would want to go there, because life goes on, and our whole fight is to live.
Yeah.
So it's the defeat of the logic that tries to that prevents Palestinians to be together in one room.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And on what you are saying, I feel that there's always like Palestinian culture, and even like everything you just described, it's always forced to function despite everything, you know. And like, what do you think it's lost, and what do you think you gain? It's not, I don't think that gaining it's a right word, but that comes and in a different way when everything has to be done despite everything, you know. What do you think it's lost, and actually you learn to adapt?
it's a lot of things, but I think one word wins in this in this answer is time. Time
Yeah.
is lost, and time is life, really. Um, and it's a lot of energy to have to chase time every second of the day. For me, I think that time is an illusion in Palestine, because if you believe other than that, then you'd also lose your mind, because you can't control anything.
Yeah.
Of like, if you try to control your time in this context, you fail miserably. And it's something that you have to learn and relearn every day, every time you wake up in the morning. So you're basically losing your life.
Yeah, and you feel that, that it's the daily routine is stealing time slash life, because just by giving the example of Bethlehem and Jerusalem, it's something that you can actually see each city, uh, but it takes hours. It can take hours to reach, and the ways, I remember when we were there, we went on a service, and I don't even know where we were in terms of like the route it went off, and it took like 2 hours or more not to check a checkpoint, not to be not to cross a checkpoint, because if of course if you rent a Israeli car, it's different, and you can maybe go through the checkpoint, and we are international and stuff, but we were with Palestinian friends, and so that's it, like you are always risking being there more time if they want to ask whatever. And so just that idea of like you could see the city, and it just takes a lot of hours, because you never know if there's flying checkpoints or whatever. And so
Or if they close the checkpoint, or
yeah.
and by the way, the service drivers are heroes
Yeah,
in
they are.
Palestine. They are heroes. They always find a way around,
Yes.
whatever the circumstances.
Yes.
Yeah, I always feel like I just give my life away whenever I'm in a service. Like I know
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that's
reach
what
the
it is.
destination. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I
Exactly.
just know I'm gonna reach the destination.
We will, yeah.
After
And
all.
with less checkpoints as possible, even if they have to, do a huge
Dig
tour.
Yes. Dig a whole road ahead of the
And then some we were like, I don't know if this is a road, but it's going, It's just they keep going. So this is like more on something I really wanted to ask you in terms of archive, because there's the destruction of cultural life, in Palestine in general includes libraries, archives, museums, universities, all of that. And like when all of this is burned, archives, we usually, when we say this, we picture books or we picture documents or objects or stuff like that. But there is also, and I feel that like written things, even if you kind of like burn one, you can bring it to, I don't know, to save it for the next generation somehow, or hide it or whatever. How do you preserve, in terms of sound, for example, something that was never written down, something that it's oral, it was a song, it was, or an everyday sound of a place, for example? Like, how do you preserve some of those things?
There's two ways. There's with using technology and recording and putting all together or collecting all the sound or sonic archives or sonic pieces that come out of productions of works at Dar Jacir or the neighborhood or the street. From my experience with sound studies, it's sadly there's a lack of sound archives in general around the world, but specifically in the Arab countries. And I think Palestine at the moment, its sound is becoming something prioritized, and it's good to see it like that. And there's also the oral history, of course, and preserving the heritage with storytelling, with songs, with music that come through the generations. These are different ways of sonic archiving. Of course, it's as you said, anything could be lost, and for me, there's this sentence screaming in my head, which is everything in this universe has vibration, and vibration is sound. And if something doesn't have vibration, it ceases to exist. So the existence of the Palestinians itself is a scream, is a shout. So yeah, any act of preserving that and holding it is an archive.
Yeah. And I promise not to take you longer, but I would like to, and even for the people who usually listen / sees the podcast, like, what does it mean to listen to Palestine in a responsible way?
I mentioned that listening is to let your guard down and to open yourself, to open your heart, your soul, and your mind to the human being that's in front of you. I think to listen responsibly is to let yourself be vulnerable, to receive the information as it is, and to not let fear of change take over. Because when you listen, something has to change, for sure.
You cannot unlisten.
And you cannot unlisten.
Thank you. Thank you, Reem.
Thank you.
At Don't Skip Humanity, we believe in storytelling as a path for collective liberation. And at Yala, every voice is a reminder that, Palestinians keep creating, keep resisting, keep living and fighting for their liberation. So if you want to hear more of these stories, more of these voices, and you believe also that these stories are a way for collective liberation, collective mobilization, join us and support us. Thank you.
شكرا.